This is very true. And, I was very fortunate because I grew up in a home ward in a small town in Utah where I totally felt loved. From 8 to 17, I felt supported. In the Young Women's Program, I had leaders who sometimes weren't ideal, but I always felt like they were trying. As an adult, and I've said this before, I kind of left the church. I was inactive for a while, and I would try to go to church, and I did kind of feel like an outsider. And when we finally did come back, we were really super embraced. It turned out that my husband, who is a convert to the church, and he's a convert, I've told this story, he's a convert because we started going to church, and here he comes. And so now,
what was that kid doing?
the story's going to be totally ruined because he's going to listen.
You are silly. I saw you.
I was going through my drafts and realized I never finished this. And I actually probably could have finished it with my husband listening. I just wanted to give him my full attention. So I want to go back and finish this because I really do want to speak on this comment. As I was saying, I was inactive for a long time, and I went back to church and made my husband come to wrangle these small children I had. And because of that ward and because of the change the gospel made to my children's lives, my husband's heart was softened and he joined the church. And that ward, they just embraced us. They were great. And my husband had been in scouting, and so he knew a lot of people that were in our ward. And so it really was a homecoming for both of us, a homecoming for me because I was coming back to the LDS faith, and a homecoming for him because he felt comfortable. He knew these people, and then they really fellowshiped him. We ended up moving to Utah to be closer to my family. That did not work out for many reasons. And the ward I was in was fine. I didn't feel as embraced, but the bishop of that ward, I really saw him as a father figure. And to be honest, he was probably the last bishop I had that could be a father figure that wasn't close to my age. We ended up moving back to California, and the ward that we were assigned to was very, very difficult. My username is a joke that came about because of this ward, because there were two factions to that ward. There was the ward who hung out together, and their kids all hung out together, and they excluded anybody who was not in their little cliquey circle, and they pushed it in people's faces that they weren't in the cliquey circle. An example of this is that my husband got called to be the Cub Committee chair, and I got called to be the Cub Committee, the pack leader, the Cub Master. I became the Cub Committee chair. And at the same time, I was in the Relief Society presidency as well. And I wanted to keep that calling. So I was doing both things. Well, I took my Mormon assault vehicle and I went to pick up a whole bunch of my Cub Scouts to go to this little Cub Scout, jamboree thing. My son was a Cub Scout at the time. We pull up, we picked up all these little boys that were at one person's house because they had all come from a movie. And so my poor son had to sit in a car with a group of boys who had all just come from the movie together when my son was not even invited. They did that kind of stuff all the time. As my daughters moved into the youth program, it was extremely hard for them. It was extremely hard for a lot of adult women. So can you imagine being part of the youth? That same day that happened, I was done with that ward. And I went to the little jamboree, and I ran into another woman who was in our ward who was very active in scouting, and I poured my heart out to her, and she said, "I'm with you. We're both in that B list. We're both on that B list. We're not important to those people. But you know who we are important to? The Lord. That one became one of my really best friends because she was, so loving and caring and everything you would want a word sister to be. But she was on the B list. There are many women who are on the B list who I can tell you are saints. They are the personification of a latter-day saint. And a lot of the people that were in that clique are not. We eventually moved to the ward I'm in now. And I'm telling you, I cried to my stake president about how I needed to move out of that ward. And everybody knew. It was like in the stake, it's like a dirty little secret. Everybody knew about that ward. The ward I moved into now, I was going to say amazing. It was amazing at first. As you know, there's been some difficulties. But it's been amazing. It really has. It was amazing for my youth. I'm going to be honest. My daughters, my one daughter was kind of chased off by Young Women Leadership. I can go into that more. But she's almost 18 and it didn't matter. My son, I've talked many times on here about how the ward loves and has embraced my son. My other daughter as well. Your ward can make a difference. And you're supposed to walk into any LDS ward in the entire world and find family. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't. And that is horrible when that happens. But what I learned from that experience when I was in the ward where it was those two factions is that there were people there. And I made those people my priority. Because I don't go to church to be entertained. I don't go to church to be friends with people. I go to church to improve myself. I go to church to be reminded of my Savior, Jesus Christ. I go to church to expand my relationship with my Lord. And the best way to do that is when you're in church, looking around, find those people that need you, Because everybody in the church is broken. Everybody. That ward was a demonstration of that. But you find those people in your ward who are worthy of your friendship. And you don't forget why you go to church. You go to church to build your relationship with the Lord. You go to church to be closer to the Savior. I know it's hard sometimes. Recently, I wanted to go to a whole different ward because of one person who wasn't even supposed to be there. But I had to be reminded of the relationships that I would lose in my ward if I did that. I guess that's all I have to say on the topic.